Hello guys, welcome back. I'm James for Kit Guru, and this is the bequiet Silent Bass 802, a new case from bequiet. May look familiar to one or two of you. We kind of was a bit late on the review embargo for this, so today I'm going to do something a little bit different, as well as doing a quick review and looking at the features of this case. I'll be building a system inside it. I've been gathering together some parts for my own upgrade to my own gaming system, and this case looked like the ideal candidate for that. You can pick this case up now in the UK, priced around £159. It's available with a window in this side or with a plain steel side panel, and it's also available either in white or black. So the first thing to mention about this case is these feet, or legs, whatever you want to call them. These don't come pre-installed, and they're a little bit hidden away in the polystyrene packaging, so if you do buy this case, make sure you don't throw the box and the polystyrene away before you get these legs out. So the first thing to do is to install these legs to the case, because obviously without them airflow is going to be restricted to the bottom and your power supply is going to be choked off. So that's the first thing to do. It looks as though these just clip into position, and there's some little locating pegs and some kind of clip there, so hopefully we'll just be able to slide these in. That's it. They do make quite a noticeable click when they're in position. With those legs fitted, you can see we've got a bit of ground clearance now. There's about 20mm of clearance down there, so that should be enough to provide a bit of airflow underneath the case to the power supply. The main upgrade, or the main addition to the features of this case, is the front panel. In its stock configuration, the case comes with this solid front panel that just slides upwards and can be lifted out. And as you can see on the back of this front panel, there's some soundproofing insulation. That's just some 10mm thick foam. You can replace that solid front panel with this new vented mesh front panel, and that just slides in there in the same way that the solid front panel comes out. So now you have a high airflow Silent Bass 802. Apparently bequiet is working on some kind of kit for the Silent Bass 801 to allow current 801 users the option to fit this vented front panel. And then behind the front panel you have a mesh dust filter, and then behind that there's two bequiet Pure Wings 2 140mm fans that come pre-installed. On this top panel is the front I/O connectivity. So on here you have a single USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C port, two 3.5mm audio jacks, a large power button in the middle, reset button next to that, and a hard drive activity LED, and then two USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports. Behind the front I/O ports is another panel that removes. That also has sound dampening material on that. Further back there's another smaller vented panel that is removable. The side panels are tool-free removal, so to remove those you push these buttons in, and then that releases the side panel and you just lift that out. Same for the tempered glass side panel. Push in the button, lift it and pull it up to remove. At the top of the rear panel there's space for up to a 140mm fan or 140mm radiator. A Pure Wings 2 140 comes pre-installed there. Next to it is the rear I/O cutout. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 PCIe slots, plus 2 vertical PCI slots. At the bottom of the case is a removable bracket for installing the power supply, so the power supply installs from the rear. The motherboard tray supports the installation of motherboards up to eATX form factor, so that includes eATX, ATX, micro ATX and mini ITX. In terms of cooling support, at the front of the case you can fit either 3 140mm fans or up to a 420mm radiator. At the top of the case, maximum radiator size is 360mm, or alternatively you can fit 3 140mm fans up there. And then in the rear of the case you can fit either a 120, 140 fan or a 120 or a 140 radiator. For storage, at the right hand side of the case there's a removable 3.5 inch drive bay underneath this power supply shroud. Alternatively, if you want to fit more than two 3.5 inch drives in this case, you can remove these plastic panels, so they just pop out, and then bequiet supplies just one of these 3.5 inch drive bays. That just slots in where you've removed that plastic panel, and then it's fixed in place with 3 thumb screws, and then that gives you the option to fit another 5 3.5 inch drives at the front of the case there. And then on the floor of the case is, as we come to expect these days, a full cover power supply shroud. These plastic panels can be removed to facilitate the installation of a thicker radiator at the front of the case. And then if we flip the case round, in the right hand side you can see there is space up here for 2 2.5 inch SSD drives. There's space for another 2.5 inch drive there. We also have a fan controller, and this is a 4-step fan controller. So on the front panel you've got 3 manual positions, so 3 different speed ranges on that switch on the front of the panel, and you can also switch to an auto or PWM mode. So that's your 4 stages of fan control. And then down at the bottom of the case, inside this power supply shroud, you can see here is the 3.5 inch drive bay. This is a removable caddy, so that's removed from the bay, and then you install your hard drives in there, put that back in and fix in position. This bracket can also come out, so you can completely do away with that to make more space in the power supply shroud. With that drive bay installed, there's enough space down there for a power supply up to 288mm long. At this side of the case you can see there's a big space there for routing cables up to maybe the EPS power connectors and up to your top mounted fans. There's also 3 cutouts with rubber grommets down the side of the motherboard tray. There's a very small gap down at the bottom here, so you can route your front panel audio through there and your USB headers. Another interesting feature of this case is the top panel. You can either remove 6 screws, so there's 2 on either side and then 2 at the back, and you can remove that whole top panel. Or if you want to just install some fans or install a radiator, there's just 2 screws that need removing. So 1 at the back and 1 at the front. So just remove those screws, and then this panel slides out of the case, so you can install your fans or install your radiator in there, and then just line it up with the channel, slide it back in position, and then reinstall the screws. Also at this side of the case you can fit a CPU tower cooler up to 185mm tall and graphics cards up to 432mm long in this open layout. And then dust filtration, you obviously got the filter from the front panel that we removed previously. There's also a large dust filter that covers the hole in the side of the case, and that just pulls out from the bottom. And then when you remove the solid panels from the top of the case, you can fit this dust filter in their place. This is like a 2-tone black and white filter, and that just sticks on the top with magnets that just rest there in place. Another feature of this case is that the motherboard can be inverted, so you can kind of strip the whole case down, flip the motherboard round and have the window panel on this side, so the system is kind of installed upside down. I don't think I'm going to use that feature. I think I'll stick with the traditional kind of layout. This system that I'm going to be building inside it is going to be used primarily for gaming, so I'm going with the high airflow layout, so using the mesh panel at the front, and I've took the blanks off the top, so there's airflow at the top as well. And the system that I'm going to be building inside the case is using an ROG Strix Z490A gaming motherboard, an Intel Core i9 10850K CPU, because as well as gaming I'm going to be doing a bit of video editing and photo editing and that kind of productivity stuff, so 10 cores should be enough. Yes, I should have probably gone with Ryzen, but I ordered this before Ryzen 5000 and you can't even get any of those CPUs anyway at the moment, so for now Z490. I'm also using 32 gig of this Corsair Dominator Platinum RGB. This is 3200 megahertz, and graphics, finally I get to try out my new Zotac Trinity OC RTX 3080. Can't wait to give that a try. For storage, I'm going to be using some drives out of my old system, so I think I've got a Samsung 960 EVO 500 gig NVMe. I'll be using that as a boot drive. I have a 2TB mechanical hard drive in there as well, and some smaller SSDs. I don't think I'm going to use those because I've got myself a new Crucial MX500 2TB SATA SSD. And then for CPU cooling, for now I'm going to be using this bequiet Pure Loop 360. I do intend to install a full custom loop in this system eventually, when I can get my hands on the water block for this GPU. But before we start on the build, just want to quickly remind you guys that have not subscribed to the Kit Guru channel yet, make sure you do that today, and you can also hit the like button and hit the bell button for notifications. If you want to help support Kit Guru in other ways, we'd be really grateful if you head over to our store, pick up some Kit Guru merch, and if you want to keep up with all the action, you can connect with us through our social media, so Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or our Discord channels. And as always, there is the kitguru.net website where you can head over there and check out all our in-depth hardware reviews and all the latest tech and gaming news. So it was pretty late last night when I got this finished, so we're actually 24 hours on from when we started this video. The build's complete, systems all fully installed, everything's up and running, working absolutely perfectly. There's a couple of things I like about this case that really helped with the build. The sliding panel at the top of the case for the radiator, that was really handy. You don't have to reinstall the screws straight away, so you can slide the radiator in and out a bit as you're working on the system, which was particularly useful when plugging in the EPS power connectors at the top of the motherboard, so that's a nice touch. The small plastic panels that you pop out if you want to install extra hard drive bays, they also came in handy. Routing the USB 3 cable through, I've actually put in a 90-degree adapter on that, but I was then able to route the USB 3 front panel cable through one of those little plastic covers, so that made the system look a little bit neater as well. And another thing that I really like is this removable panel on the power supply shroud. That allowed me to kind of install the hard drive in the bay down at the bottom of the case, kind of the wrong way around, so the cables are facing towards the power supply shroud, and because you can pop that cover off, you can then get to those cables, connect up your SATA power and your SATA data cable as well. So that's another nice touch. Cable management as well, there was quite a bit of time spent on that. I usually like to spend a bit of time on cable management, but again, that was quite easy in this case. There's obviously that big cutout at the top of the case where you can route cables to the top of the motherboard, and there's also a lot of areas on the back of the motherboard tray where you can tie cables down to, probably because you can invert this motherboard, so there's tie down points on both sides and up the middle and at the top. So again, cable management was good. I was really impressed with that, and it looks nice and neat end product. There's also plenty of space inside the case, so even with that long RTX 3080 graphics card in, there's still space at the front of the case if you wanted to install a radiator or pump rest combo or whatever there. Plenty of room for that. And overall, yeah, I'm really quite impressed with how the build went. It went quicker than I expected, and there's no real issue that we came up against during the build, so overall, really happy with it so far. I've been doing a bit of fiddling around with the settings of the system, so adjusting the CPU frequency and just messing about with the GPU as well. I originally had the CPU configured to 5.2 GHz across all cores with a 1.35 V core. That was stable in IDA 64 stress test, but during the 3D Mark TimeSpy benchmark, it crashed on the CPU test. So I've just backed that off to 5.1 GHz at the moment, and the GPU is running at stock frequency, but through MSI Afterburn, I've just adjusted the power limit to 105%. In fact, I had to download a different BIOS for the Trinity OC card. The original BIOS only allowed 100% power limit, so that's at 105%. And I've also upped the temperature limit to 91 degrees. So whether that'll make any difference to how it runs, I'm not sure, but at least it's able to have as much power and go up to a bit higher temperature, so we'll see how that goes. I plan to run the 802 in this configuration it's in at the moment, with the airflow front and top panels installed, but since this is a review of the case as well as me just installing a system inside it, we're going to have a look at the thermal performance as well. So to begin with, I'm just running the 3D Mark TimeSpy demo in a loop for an hour, and then we'll measure the CPU and GPU temperature using HW info and have a look at what the delta temperatures are. After that, I'll switch to the silent or closed configuration, so the closed front panel and those solid top panels fitted, and then just compare how the two different configurations affect the thermal performance. So the thermal performance tests are complete, and it's no great surprise that the system temperature is at its lowest in the high airflow configuration. In either configuration, GPU temperature isn't greatly affected. The biggest effect on thermal performance is with the CPU, and it shows that the solid top panels are obviously choking off the airflow to that top mounted radiator. And it's the same story with the acoustic testing. With the case in its silent configuration, again, it's no surprise that the noise levels are lowest in this configuration. A couple of decibels increase in noise levels will be noticeable in the high airflow configuration, but for some it will be worth trading off that higher noise levels for the improvement in thermal performance. So taken as a whole, so far so good with the bequiet Silent Base 802. The build quality is of the usual bequiet standard. Everything feels pretty solid. Case panels all fit together nicely. The only very slight issue I have with the case is a minor mismatch of colour in the different panels. So the steel panels and the plastic panels have a very slightly different tone or different shade of white, which I've seen that before on plenty of white cases, so I'm not too surprised by that. And having the option out of the box to switch between these solid silent panels or these high airflow vented panels, it really does cover all bases. The system is really quiet in this silent configuration, and with those bequiet Pure Wings 2 fans installed, so you can either run the system like that for low noise levels, or you can simply switch to this high airflow front panel and then you've got improved thermal performance. Let us know what you think of the bequiet Silent Bass 802, and if there's anything I've missed, leave a comment in the section below and I'll do my best to answer your questions. If you've not already subscribed to the Kit Guru channel, make sure you do that today. Also hit the like button and hit the bell button for notifications. And if you want to help support Kit Guru in other ways, you can always head over to our store, pick up some Kit Guru merch, and you can connect with us through our social media channels such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and through Discord. And as usual, you can head over to the kitguru.net website where you can catch up on all the latest in-depth technical reviews and catch up on all the tech news and all the gaming news. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.